Welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast, strategies that help entrepreneurs build reputable and profitable brands. Here's your host, Henry Kaminski Jr.
What's going on, everyone? We're super excited to have another special guest on the Brand Doctor Podcast and I have a very, very, very special guest today. Her name is Lorraine Regularly from Wording Well. How are you today, Lorraine?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you, Henry?
I'm doing awesome. So we have a mutual friend who sort of connected us together, and this particular friend said, you have to have this young lady on your podcast. She has an amazing story that I think your audience would love to hear and be inspired by. And so here we are. And Lorraine, I am super excited. He just told me this like super high level version of it. And I was just like, holy smokes. So you own and operate a business called Wording Well. And I always like to start the episode by asking you how you created your brand and the story that's behind it.
Okay. I think it's probably best if I start with the backstory because it shocks people when they first hear about it. And that's that I used to be involved with drugs and prostitution, all as a result of being raped. Way back when I was 14, 2 months before I turned 15. Yes, I was still a virgin. I was raped. That traumatic event changed my life forever. Because I didn't know how to cope with the rape, I ended up turning to drugs and drinking as a way of numbing the pain that I felt. This happened to me back in the 1980s during a time where, things weren't as openly discussed as they are now. And back then I felt as though I couldn't tell anyone about what happened to me. So I kept it all inside and I tried to deal with it by myself. And I couldn't. Because my entire belief system had been basically shattered. I ended up, I quit school, I turned to drugs, I turned to drinking, I started looking for love in all the wrong places, becoming promiscuous and sleeping around. And then one day, and I'll tell you the story about how this happened, because not too many people know this. In fact, nobody knows the song. So you'll be the first to broadcast the exclusive story about how I got involved with prostitution. I was hitchhiking downtown one day. I was waiting for the bus, and I decided to stick my thumb out faster, and anyhow, the guy that picked me up made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And I figured, hey, seeing as how I've been, kind of giving things away for free, I might as well make some money at it. And that's how I got involved. And I mean, 5 minutes later and boom, I had $80 in my pocket. And it was just like, okay, so I guess maybe this is what I'll start doing now. I had a few friends that were involved in the lifestyle. And so I talked with them about it. I tried it. And yeah, I kind of got addicted to the money. I mean, it was fast, easy money. And I figured, I was wrecked as a person already. So what did I have to lose? The thing is, and I know that you're involved with one of the charities. What's that charity?
A Voice for the Innocent.
Right. So I was, an innocent young girl when I was raped. And, things kind of snowballed after that traumatic event. And I've seen it happen to other people too, that go through whether it's a physical abuse, a sexual abuse, a psychological abuse from either parents or partners or whatever. I mean, abuse is abuse, and it doesn't seem to matter what kind it is. It still will affect you in a very, very negative way. And so it's hard to get out of that mindset. It's hard to make changes in your life. And it wasn't until years later, like I think I was 14 when it happened, and I believe I was 22 when I first sought counseling. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until until I was in my 20s that I started to learn and believe that, it wasn't my fault. And, I knew it wasn't my fault all along, but still in the back of your mind, you always think, well, did I do something to precipitate this? I mean, as a survivor, you always feel guilty, even though you shouldn't. And, and that's part of the innocence of being, a child or in a situation where you can't figure out why it happened. The only solution, the only reason it seems, well, it must have been my fault somehow, because you can't think of, you don't realize, because you're so innocent, that there's predators out there. You don't know about all the evils in the world. And so anyways, let's just skip forward to, I went through counseling. I had some ups and downs in my life. I did become a single mom at the age of 18. I went to university. I got 2 degrees teaching math and English. I did that for 3 years because I got a BA and a BEd. And then I actually quit teaching high school because I was living in a small town and I wanted to return to my hometown. So I did that. I quit my job, and ironically, I got back into prostitution. And I've written about this on my website. I mean, teacher turns prostitute again, or teacher quits, teaching to return to that because the money's better and whatever else. And so anyways, my son discovered what happened was he discovered what I was doing, and by this time he was 19, and he decided to disown me. So he moved out of the house, and we had no contact for 3 years. And it was during that first year that I spiraled downward, because, you have to hit rock bottom before you can climb up. So my rock bottom was doing drugs, even worse drugs that I had done before. I smoked crack for 10 months. And, oh God, let me tell you, that was the worst time in my life. It was just horrible. I mean, I have so many bad memories about, all those past times and experiences. But, the good thing now is that I was able to quit everything and basically become a new person. Not one of those, born again virgins or, Bible thumpers that, like that people you often see, turn into. I'm nothing like that. Basically what happened was, because I had suffered from suicidal thoughts throughout my entire life, back stemming, as soon as that rape happened, and I tried to kill myself when I was 15, and, and I mean, once I had my son, the only thing that ever stopped me from killing myself was him. I didn't want to leave him motherless. So basically once, I did lose him from my life. And, once I quit drugs and everything else, I thought, okay, I have to get my son back and I have to become a different person, because this is not the life that I want. I want a happy life. I have never known what it's like to be happy. So what happened was I actually got really sick and my appendix burst and I ended up in the hospital. And it was during that point where I had an epiphany. I realized I did not want to die, because I literally was dying before they gave me the emergency surgery. And I was in so much pain. For those of you who know someone or who have ever had a burst appendix, you will understand it's worse than giving birth. Like childbirth is hard, but oh my God, a burst appendix, unbelievable. So anyways, I decided to reconnect with my son because number one, I didn't want to die without saying goodbye to him. And number two, I realized like I want to live. I have things that I want to accomplish. You know, I've always dreamt of having a writing career, of working in the writing field. I mean, you know, being an English teacher, that's, you know, very, very limited. You're teaching things to students, you know, preparing them for university or college or whatever. But it's not actually, you know, it wasn't actually doing what I wanted. And so I did reconnect with my son, and he, just by talking to me, he could tell that I was no longer on drugs. He could tell that I had changed. So we ended up reestablishing our relationship with one another, repairing it, and he helped me to continue to move forward. And it's all because of my son. And something he said to me that Christmas when we reconnected, he's like, I asked him what he wanted for Christmas. And he's like, Mom, don't get me anything. Just buy yourself something you need. And even though I got him presents, I listened to what his advice was. And I thought, well, what do I need? I don't need anything. So I went out and I bought the 2013 Writer's Market book. Because I had written a book when I was in university, and my professor encouraged me to get it published because it was the top book that, like I received 90% grade on it, and it was the top scoring mark in her class out of everyone who submitted books. And she's like, Lorraine, you really have to share this with everybody. You have to get it published. So the Writer's Market lists all of the publishers in Canada and the US, some international ones too. And so I started doing some research on that. And I had actually purchased 2 previous copies of the Writer's Market prior to that because I did have, you know, these dreams of becoming an author and everything. But I somehow always got sidetracked and never followed through. You know, life got in the way. I was taking care of my son, doing whatever else I was doing, working and whatnot. But when I read the 2013 Writer's Market, it said that authors are now expected to promote their works through social media as well as blogs, websites of. I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, technology's really come a long way. And I mean, I didn't even own a computer at that point. So, but I'd always wanted a laptop. So I went out and I bought a laptop and I learned about blogging. And 4 days later, I started my blog. And it was at that time just a free one on WordPress.com. And then I decided to, you know, just dive into blogging and learn everything I could about it. And fortunately for me, because I've always been good at reading and teaching myself things, like I'm a self-learner. So I learned all about that. I learned about self-publishing. So when 2014 rolled around, I moved my website to my current website, Wording Well. I came up with that name. I decided, okay, well, I work with words, and what do? I write, I edit, and so I make words perfect. I improve them. So I thought, okay, well, what's the best possible name I could come up with? And I thought of a few, and I asked my friends, my author friends and my writer friends, and they said, okay, well, this one here sounds the best. And it was available. I had to check for availability too. So, I mean, anyone who searched for a domain name knows how difficult that can be. So Wording Well was available, and I decided to move my website over there. And then because it was an actual business by this point, what I was doing online, because I'd been freelancing, offering writing and editing services, I actually turned it into a legit business. Registered it with my, the Canadian government and, everything. I mean, then you have to, learn all about taxes and, bookkeeping and everything else. And
now you're legit.
Is not, yeah, it's totally legit. So, I mean, you have to know all of these different things, when you're an entrepreneur. And so, later that year, I ended up publishing my first book, which was Risky Issues. It's just a book of short stories that I compiled together and put, packaged it all up as a nice book so I could go through all the steps of self-publishing and made sure I got all those right. And then once I did, because I had other people asking me, in fact, Max, the man who brought you and I together, he was thinking about writing a book. And he said, well, Lorraine, I think you might be the person to help me out with it. And so, I mean, yes, I edited his book, but then once I published mine, he asked me to help publish his. And, then he came out with his second book. So I helped him with that. I helped a couple of other people with theirs. A lawyer published a book. I helped him with that. Then I came out with my second book, which was my baby. And I'm just going to hold it up. It's called From Nope to Hope, How I Overcame My Suicidal Thoughts and How You Can Too. And this book is fairly thick. And it includes a built-in workbook, as well as nice colorful pictures too. So at the end of each chapter, I've included a little section for people to write in, so that they could do exercises based, applying the strategies that they've learned in that chapter. So it's basically a self-help book, where I shared all the strategies that I learned and all the techniques that I learned for overcoming suicidal thoughts and learning to live a happier life, and as well to be successful. So I mean, the journey that I've been on, I mean, it has been incredible, full of ups and downs. I like to think of my life as a roller coaster ride. But the end of it though is where I am now, and I'm actually a happy person for the first time in my life. I'm working, doing something that I built on my own, so there's a feeling of pride there. And I'm working with words. I mean, anyone who knows me thinks I'm absolutely, bonkers because I'm so in love with words. Reading, writing, editing, anything to do with words. I mean, my mom was a grade school teacher and she taught me how to read and write. I was her firstborn child, so I completely benefited from that. I mean, she's proud now that all of her early work has finally, resulted in something where I'm doing something that I'm very passionate about. I mean, people always say, do what you love because then you'll never have to work a day in your life. And my God, are they right?
I love it.
Love it. I just love doing what I'm doing.
I love it. Well, listen, I appreciate you sharing this story with my audience and with me. I think it's amazing. I have some questions, if you don't mind answering. First and foremost, and so I always like to tie people's backstories into entrepreneurship, into branding, and one of the things that I want to touch upon is when things don't go the way you want them to, and things start to really backfire, and next thing you know, you're on the slippery slope, and you're feeling just down and out. Imposter syndrome has came in and conquered, and now you're getting to that lowest point, and clearly you've been there before,
many times.
Right, and not just once. But so when you get to that point, and there's a click that goes off in your head, what typically sparks or ignites that moment where you're saying, okay, I need to make a change?
Well, for me personally, even with business, I mean, there were times where, I tried a certain strategy, or I did an experiment and it didn't work, and or even at the end of, doing a couple of, editing projects or something, and then all of a sudden I have no work to do. It's like I find myself falling into these lulls or low points, and I think, okay, how the heck am I going to pull myself out of this? But what I have learned is I've recognized that these are just feelings, and it's how you react to these feelings or to these situations that makes the difference. So now, I could choose to be depressed and to let myself get depressed even further. Or I could choose to say, okay, what's going on? This is going on. How can I fix it? Okay, let's go back to the strategies and techniques that have worked for you in the past. Focus on doing something that you love. And there's so many in my book. I'm just trying to think of the main ones that kind of come to my head. One of the things that I use that really, really helps is positive affirmations. And I first learned about these just a few years ago. Basically, positive affirmations consists of repeating statements that you create or that someone has created for you, repeating them to yourself over and over every single day until they start to become a reality. They might not be true when you first start using them, or you might not believe them when you first start using them, but your mind can be trained. And if you're told something often enough, you will eventually start to believe it. And and here's just a negative example for, back when I was 15, my dad always used to say, Lorraine, you're nuts, you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I heard all the time. And it's I started to believe it. But now that I've learned about positive affirmations, and I've learned that, you know what, it works both ways. If you tell yourself something positive over and over and over, you're going to start believing that positive part. You're going to turn into a positive person, and you are going to start seeing results. And so I don't use them actually every day. I should, but I don't, because I've learned to use them in such a way that if I do find myself falling or slipping, I'll start using them again just to kind of, bring myself up a bit. The cool thing about positive affirmations is that they're always there. I have a list printed out that I can refer to, and I'll just kind of show it to you here because it's right on my desk. It's never far from here. So basically, because I even did a workshop on this with other people. So affirmations, the reason that they work is because you can retrain your brain. So some of the ones, I'm just going to give you a couple. Success and achievement are natural outcomes for me. There are no limits to what I can and will achieve today. Doors of opportunity are constantly open for me. I expect great things from myself, and I will achieve my goals. Today, I am concentrating on moving my life forward. A successful business person lives within me, and today that person is running my business. I am competent, confident, and calm. I have pages and pages. Yeah. So, depending on, how I'm feeling, I will apply, use these to my life. And I even have ones based on health, because I am an overweight person. Weight's something I've struggled with my entire life. And I'm, back on my journey to getting healthier and losing weight again. And I even have affirmations for this. I need to make a change now. I want to be healthier. I want to be alive when my grandchildren are born. And grow up. I want to be successful in other areas of my life, and I can be if I'm healthy and happier. I even have action steps, drink water, move more, eat fruits and vegetables. I have so many things. Self-help is an endless thing.
It is. And so I add that what you put in. Well, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know where that's coming from. Yeah, can you just turn the...
what you put into things is what you get out of it. I mean, if you're willing to work, put forth some effort, you're going to see results.
Right. And what you put into your brain is what you're going to get out. Like what you tell yourself is literally what you're going to get out. And,
Exactly.
I see a lot of people fall into these funks and they don't get out. And next thing you know, a half a year goes by and they're wondering why they haven't achieved what they wanted to achieve. Well, what are you telling yourself? What are you going from nope to hope? I love that. You are really good at words. And that is going to be this title for this episode. I'm just going to put it out there. Yeah, the way it is. Yeah, I love that too. And so let me ask you another question. So bringing this back into branding and marketing and entrepreneurship, there's got to be some things out there, and my audience knows I ask this question all the time, but there's got to be something out there, a pet peeve of yours inside your industry that's really grinding your gears that you are just hell bent on either resolving or fighting against, and you've drawn that line in the sand deep. What is that for you?
Okay, for me, you're gonna laugh when I tell you this because it's so true. When you go on Facebook and you see people who write a capital letter for every word in their sentence on their Facebook post, doesn't that drive you nuts? Oh my God, it drives me nuts.
I do that a lot.
People who misspell and misuse your and your. Like, your podcast is Y-O-U-R, but you are like Y-O-U and then another word, R. So that gets changed to Y-O-U apostrophe R-E. You are doing a great job on your podcast. So you're doing a great job on your podcast. Which your goes which your, right? Like, and I have written about this on Facebook. I have, hashtag English, hashtag lesson, the difference between, and
let's talk about this for a second.
These are basically based around words.
Well, it makes sense. It totally makes sense because right. you are quite the wordsmith. And this week we're talking about brand reputation, on the show. And what happens? I've been called out for it. I raise my hand. I'll be the first to tell you that my grammar is not the best. My wife is a tremendous writer, and so she cringes sometimes when I put things together. And then I just said, you know what? I need to hire somebody to do this for me.
Not hire me because I'm like I'm the police.
So we're talking about brand reputation this week, and now there's entrepreneurs out there, there's personal brands out there that are posting content and they're misusing grammar. They're not using the right your versus you are. They're capitalizing every word in every sentence. So clearly for somebody like you who's got the eye for grammar may look at them and say, this guy's or this gal's incompetent, or now you're questioning their competency because
that's so true. And I was giving Max shit about this, like probably 5 times in this past like 12, 13 months, because he is a great writer. And,
and he's blind. And he's blind.
When he goes on social media, because I know he's blind, but that's no excuse. It's no excuse for for laziness. He can type and he knows how to capitalize a word and he knows how to put a period and he knows how to hit the enter key. So just because he's blind doesn't mean he's stupid.
No, okay? I didn't say that. I love it. He's one of the most
talented, brilliant guys, most loving, helpful, amazing people. I mean, he's like one of my mentors. Honestly, I mean, I met Max in a blog comment on a guest post I wrote, and he mentioned he was blind, and I was like, how are you doing this if you're blind? How are you reading articles on the internet? How are you blogging? How are you running a business? You're blind. And I ended up doing like a huge interview with him. And actually, if you Google interview with a blind man, wording well is the first link that pops up. Like, he is amazing, that
he's
guy.
awesome. I can't wait to have him on the
anyways,
show.
I started giving him shit, and now he is posting. And the reason I said, Max, if you want people to think that, like, you're a professional writer, and if you want people to buy your books, and if you want people to take you seriously, you have to show yourself properly online. Anything that you write, you're being judged. Make sure you capitalize your sentences. Use periods. Try and, instead of making everything one long paragraph, hit the enter key a couple of times. He doesn't mind when I give him shit now, because, like, he'll say, oh, yes, right. Yes, I have to remember this. And I've drilled it into his head now, because that's been so many times. Now, if you go to his social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whatever, even his emails are excellent. You'll see everything now. He's actually listened to me, because, he knows it's going to affect his sales. He knows it's going to affect how other people view him. And, he has the podcast, What's Your Excuse? And, I throw it right back at his face. I'm like, what's your excuse? Just because you're blind, like, doesn't mean, like, you're allowed to be lazy. Right. And yeah, Lorraine, you're right, because everything else I do with, the utmost, perfection as humanly possible. And I said, yeah, Max, like, you really have to watch what you're doing. And so now, I'm so grateful that he's not only listened to me, but he will go out of his way to brag about me as his editor. Not just his editor and his author assistant, but, like, just as a friend, as a person. And, like I said, like, that's how you and I met, because he was saying, like, you really got to, like, talk to Lorraine. Yeah. And I appreciate everything that he says about me. He's just such an amazing person.
He really is the salt of the earth.
He has such a good heart. He pays everything forward to, like, there's no tomorrow.
He does.
And, and that's what I try and do too. I'm always talking about, like, when I do podcasts with other people, I'm always mentioning him and his books. Mostly because he's been my, I don't know how to, I'm a wordsmith.
He's your super fan.
Trying to come up with this word. Long-time client. I've been working with him for, like, 4 years now. So the longest standing client, I guess you could say. But he's more than that. He's a friend. Now he's offering media publicity services, hooking people up with appropriate podcasts to be on. Yeah. And so I hired him to be I'm his client now, because he's doing this as a service for other people. And that's how you and I actually met. Yeah. Is through him that way. So
I gotta just keep track of time here, and I want to turn the corner and sort of wrap this up. And so okay. I wanna highlight just a couple of things that I got from today's episode, and I sort of just want to tie them up in a nice little bow and kind of share with my audience and what I got out of this episode. And one of the things that I see is that, when you went from rock bottom to a beautiful life, and you were able to do that by taking action. You said, enough is enough. I'm not ready to die, and I'm going to make a life out of myself because I want to. And so that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of perseverance. And I've experienced some similar things that you've experienced in your life. One being sexual abused as a child, as a 10 and 11-year-old boy. And so that's why this year I said, you know what, I'm going to pick a charity that is close to my heart. And that's why I chose a voice for the innocent, because when I just connected with them on so many different levels. So as you're talking, I went through the drug game. I wasn't into prostitution, but there were so many things about your story that I was connecting with. And that's why I tell all my clients, when you're creating a brand, you need to really get that story out there, because you never know who's going to resonate with what level of that story. I have clients today because they almost lost their business in Hurricane Sandy like I did. So getting that story out is so crucial. So for you to be the brave woman that you are, to actually get out there and write about it and get on podcasts about it and speak about it so freely to help other people, that is an amazing thing. And so first and foremost, I want to thank you for that.
Well, you're very welcome. And I just want to add that when I first shared my story online, it was on Sylvia Nuccio's blog she titled it Rape, Drugs, Prostitution, One Blogger's Journey to Success. And I can tell you, I was terrified of putting my story out there. But when I heard all of the comments from other people and how everybody said, "Oh my goodness, Lorraine, you're such an inspiration." Like, I was flabbergasted at the positive response that I received. I mean, here I thought, like, oh my God, here we go again. People are going to be judging me and focusing, oh my God, she used to be a prostitute. Like, oh, she's horrible, like the devil,
Yeah.
And instead, what they took away from it was she went through all this crap and she overcame it and she rose above it. And now she's doing this and she's helping other people. And she's such an inspiration. And I was just overwhelmed at that response. And, it seems like there's nothing that's so horrible that you can't share it.
I agree. I totally agree. And I think
people are not going to look down on you.
I agree. And I think building your brand in 2018 and beyond is all about authenticity and transparency. And
100%.
If you can't do that, eventually others will, and they will be the chosen. And so that's my voice, and that's what I need to get out there today and let you guys know what it's looking like for the future.
Exactly. And and here's what I like to point out too. If you say it first, you avoid scandals.
Yeah, exactly.
People aren't going to say, "Oh, guess what? You know what I heard about Lorraine? Guess what? You know what I heard about Henry?" If you openly admit it, no one can talk you down. No one can diss you. And you can hold your head high and proud and own it and be like, yes, this is part of my past. That is not who I am today. Today, I am a strong, confident business owner who is running a business that anyone would be proud of running.
There you go. Lorraine, you're a beautiful soul, and I really appreciate you coming on today's show and sharing this with my audience. For those that want to learn more about you, can we get a website from you and some social media handles?
Yep. I'm the only Lorraine regularly in the whole entire world, and my business is Wording Well. I'm on Facebook. I have a contact page on my website, Wording Well. So, all you have to Google anything. Google From Nope to Hope. There's so many ways you can find me and get a hold of me. I am so open to talking with other people. I get emails and messages on Facebook all the time. From people saying, oh, thank you for helping me. Thank you for this. So it's, totally, like, just connect with me however you want.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So guys, go and check her out on social media. You got the direction. Lorraine, thank you again for being on the show. I'm rounding out the day here. It's getting late here in New Jersey, and it's just, you've inspired me. You've motivated me. You've just impacted my life in such a way. I really will never forget it. And I just want to share that with you today. And again, thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I know I tend to talk a lot, and because I've got these two screens here, it might have looked like I was staring off into space or something, because you're on my top monitor and I know my camera's on my laptop. So I've been trying to focus on looking at it. I probably look kind of spaced out, but it's been a blast. And thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to share my story and hopefully change someone's life.
You're very, very welcome. So real quick, guys, some housekeeping stuff. If you haven't joined the Brand Doctors Hangout yet, Facebook group on Facebook, go over there and join the group. We have some beautiful souls in that group that are all helping each other to build a great brand for themselves. And if you haven't shared this podcast with a friend or a colleague yet, I ask that you do, and thank you for it in advance. So there you have it, guys. Episode 104. We're going to call this one From Nope to Hope. And I hope you got some inspiration out of this one. Have an awesome day, and I'll get you on the next episode.
Thanks. Talk to you later, guys.
You've been listening to the Brand Doctor Podcast with Henry Kaminski Jr. To get your appointment with the doctor, visit Brand Audit at www.uniquedesignz.net.